A deep, rolling percussion, the kind that travels through stone and soil, felt in the chest before the mind names it. Naval gunfire, the great guns of battleships, firing from 6 miles offshore. Along the Atlantic Wall, German soldiers standing at their posts take it for thunder from the departing storm. Then the light comes. A German soldier at his post, looking east through the embrasure slit of a reinforced concrete bunker. The sky is pale, grey-blue. The sea is still rough from the storm. 4-foot swells, foam-flecked, the air cold and smelling of salt and diesel. The horizon is hazy with sea spray and low cloud fragments, and as the light grows, the soldier looks harder because something is wrong with the horizon. The horizon has gone. In its place, ships. The German officer who came closest to predicting this moment is a one-legged general in a market town 20 miles from this coast. His name is Erich Marx. He commands this coast. And at this moment, the moment those ships fill the horizon, he has been awake for nearly 6 hours, fighting a chain of command that leads, ultimately, to a sleeping man in the Bavarian Alps. What German command said when those ships appeared cannot be understood without first understanding what they believed before they saw them. By the spring of 1944, Germany is a nation fighting a war on 3 fronts that is slowly bleeding it white. On the Eastern Front, Soviet armies have been rolling steadily westward since Stalingrad. In Italy, the Allies grind north. In the West, every senior German officer knows the blow is coming, across the English Channel, onto the French coast at a time and place to be chosen by Eisenhower. The question is not whether, it is where, and it is when. Against this threat, Germany has raised a wall, literally. From the Spanish border north to Norway, 3 million tons of concrete and steel poured along Europe's Atlantic coastline. Bunkers, gun emplacements, artillery batteries, anti-tank ditches, and minefields stretching for thousands of miles. The propaganda machine calls it impregnable. His generals tell Hitler what he wants to hear. The reality is something different. The garrison troops holding the wall are not the Wehrmacht's finest. The fittest and the most able have been steadily combed away to feed the Eastern Front. The wall is thinner in places than its mythology suggests. And even if it holds long enough to massacre the first waves on the beaches, the wall alone cannot win the battle. German doctrine is explicit. The wall buys time for the Panzer divisions to counterattack before the beachhead consolidates. That counterattack, fast, hard, and early, is the only strategy that can work. Everything, therefore, depends on those armored reserves, on where they are stationed, on how quickly they can move, and, most critically, on who controls them. The German command structure in the West in the spring of 1944 is not merely complex. It is a system almost engineered for paralysis, the product of a leader's deep and growing distrust of his own generals. At the top sits Oberkommando der Wehrmacht, OKW, Armed Forces High Command. Below it, Oberbefehlshaber West, OB West, whose commander is General Feldmarschall Gerd von Rundstedt. 69 years old, cadaverous, ramrod straight. A member of the Prussian officer aristocracy who has been in the army since before the Führer knew how to salute, and whose contempt for what he sees as Hitler's interference in operational decisions he barely bothers to conceal. His staff calls him der alte Herr, the old gentleman. He has already referred to himself more than once as little more than a glorified postman. Below von Rundstedt, Army Group B, commanded by Field Marshal Erwin Rommel. 52 years old, short, compact, relentlessly energetic. The desert fox of North Africa, now frustrating himself along the Atlantic Wall, touring the fortifications daily in his horse staff car, furious at what he finds, furious at the command arrangement above him. He wears the Knight's Cross with its oak leaves and swords at his throat. He arrives at inspections unannounced. He does not trust reports when he can go and look. Rommel and von Rundstedt agree on almost nothing, including the one question that matters most. What do you do with the Panzer reserves? Rommel's argument is rooted in what he saw in North Africa. Allied air power has transformed the battlefield. Move panzer columns in daylight and they die on the road. The tanks must be positioned close to the beaches, ready to counterattack within hours of the first landing, before the Allies can establish their air umbrella over the beachhead. Strike immediately or don't strike at all. Von Rundstedt disagrees. Hold the Panzers back in concentration. Wait until the landing point is confirmed. Then drive with overwhelming force. Both men bring their disagreement to Hitler. Hitler listens. And then Hitler does what Hitler does. He solves the argument by satisfying neither man. He places the critical Panzer reserves under his personal control. 9 divisions, the formations that represent Germany's only real chance to repel an Allied landing. They will move when he authorizes them to move, and not before. This is the arrangement as of June 1944. Rommel has enough authority to frustrate von Rundstedt's strategy. Von Rundstedt has enough authority to frustrate Rommel's. Neither has enough authority to execute his own plan. At the lowest tier of this structure, with the least authority and the fewest resources, stands one more figure. General Erich Marx, commander of 84th Corps, the formation directly covering the Normandy coast. He has one leg, he lost the other in Ukraine. He walks with a prosthetic limb and a leather greatcoat, wire-rimmed glasses on a face that belongs more to a professor than a combat general. He is the sharpest operational mind in the German Defensive Command in France. In early 1944, Marx runs a war game. He is asked to play Eisenhower, to think as the Allied Supreme Commander thinks, to look at a map of France and decide. Where would you land? Marx looks at the map. He looks at the distances, the defenses, the terrain. He puts his finger on Normandy. I'll attack here, he says, in bad weather. He's not given additional resources. He's not given a larger command. His prediction is noted and filed. The man who calls it correctly commands the least powerful position in the chain. One more detail. Before June 6th. A few weeks before D-Day, Rommel writes a letter to his wife Lucy. He tells her that the 24 hours preceding the invasion will be the most decisive of the entire war. He is not wrong. The question of where he was when those hours began will be answered shortly. While Marx ran his war game, the Allies were running one of their own, on a far larger scale for far higher stakes, and with one crucial difference: their enemy didn't know it was happening. Operation Fortitude is the Allied deception plan aimed at convincing the German command that the invasion will fall at the Pas de Calais, the narrow strait between Dover and Calais, the logical crossing point, the place German strategists have assumed since 1943 must be the target. Its central creation is a fake army. The 1st United States Army Group, FUSAG, conjured from nothing and planted in the fields of Kent and Essex in southeast England. 150,000 imaginary soldiers. Inflatable M4 Sherman tanks visible to aerial reconnaissance. Dummy landing craft, tubes and canvas moored in the Thames estuary. Spurious radio traffic, carefully calibrated to suggest an enormous force preparing to cross the narrowest part of the Channel. And in command of this ghost army, General George Patton, the one Allied commander the German High Command genuinely fears. Photographed at inspections, seen in public, placed visibly at the head of a force that does not exist. Feeding this fiction into German intelligence is a network of agents, the most critical of whom operates under the codename Garbo, a Spanish anti-fascist named Juan Pujol Garcia, who had approached British intelligence for one reason. He wanted to fight the Nazis, and deception was his weapon of choice. By 1944, he supposedly runs a network of 27 sub-agents spread across Britain, all feeding intelligence to his German handlers. Not one of these sub-agents exists. Every report is fabricated. 62 of his messages are incorporated directly into the intelligence summaries of German armed forces high command, shaping the reality inside which every German strategic decision is made. The result, Germany's 15th Army, 19 divisions, the strongest formation on the French coast, is held at Pas-de-Calais, waiting for Patton, waiting for Fusag, waiting for the invasion that will never come. 250,000 troops remain in Norway, frozen by a separate strand of the same deception, guarding a coast where no one is coming. There is one more thing to understand about Fortitude. Its most important work is not done before D-Day. Its deepest work comes after. June 5, 1944. A major Atlantic depression drives across the English Channel. 10-foot swells, gale winds, low cloud ceiling, the worst early June weather in decades. The Channel is a grey, churning expanse, and the German commanders in France look at it and relax. You cannot launch an amphibious invasion in this. It is simply not possible. So they leave. Rommel drives home to Herlingen, near Ulm, 500 miles from Normandy, to celebrate Lucy's birthday. Several other senior commanders leave for Paris or for Germany, or for an officers' conference at Rennes that has pulled the top commanders of the 7th Army away from their sector on the one night it cannot be defended without them. General Dollmann's headquarters cancels a planned test alarm of the 7th Army in Normandy that had been scheduled for the 5th. Had it run, every garrison on the Atlantic War would have been at full combat readiness before dawn. The cancellation takes less than a minute to make. At 22:15, Army Group B headquarters and OKW both hold confirmed information that the invasion is imminent. The alarm is not given. At 22:40, on the occupied Channel Island of Guernsey, a German signals company watches its radar screens fill with organized formations, aircraft and gliders in precise intervals, the formation massive and unambiguous. The colonel commanding bypasses the normal chain of reporting and connects directly to Corps, command at Saint-Lô. The picture is beginning to assemble itself. Nobody in a position to act on it is in position. Meanwhile, RAF aircraft are dropping strips of aluminum foil across the channel, window the Allies call it, generating radar returns, consistent with a large fleet heading toward Pas-de-Calais. German radar operators are looking at two pictures simultaneously, real formations moving toward Normandy and ghost formations pointing toward Calais. The months of disinformation have told them which one to believe. The storm begins to break around midnight, what German meteorologists cannot see. Working without Atlantic weather data their naval stations can no longer safely collect, is the 36-hour window that Allied forecasters, led by Group Captain James Stagg, have found in the chaos. The break is there. The Allies are coming through it. It is now technically June 6th. Rommel is asleep in Herlingen. He wrote, weeks ago, that the 24 hours preceding the invasion would be the most decisive of the entire war. An empty chair sits at his headquarters at La Roche-Guyon, 55 miles west of Paris. The 24 hours have begun. In Saint-Lô, there is still light in the windows of a requisitioned stone building near the town center. Eric Marx is turning 53 years old. His staff has arranged a birthday dinner. Outside, the sound of the departing storm. And then, a telephone call. The paratroopers come first. In the darkness before dawn, men fall from the sky across the Cottontown Peninsula and east of the Orne River. American paratroopers of the 82nd and 101st Airborne Divisions scatter wide in the dark. British paratroopers of the 6th Airborne drop east of the Orne, and mixed among them, dropped deliberately, planned for precisely this moment, hundreds of dummy paratroopers rigged with explosives, designed to hit the ground and fire and make the sound of firefights across a dozen square miles of Norman farmland. Reports flood into 84th Corps headquarters in St. Lo from every direction simultaneously. Paratroopers here, paratroopers there. Shooting heard in this village, then that one, then another. Some are real. Most are not. In the dark, from the ground. There is no way to tell. Marx processes what he has. Just after midnight, a report arrives. Allied paratroopers have landed south of Carentan, a key crossroads town, a critical piece of terrain. If that's true, the road network behind the coast is in danger. He has one core reserve, a single battle group, Kampfgruppe Meyer. He orders it to clear up the problem. Meyer assembles his grenadiers and is on the road south by 3 a.m. south. Away from the coast, at 3 a.m., Adolf Hitler retires at the Berghof. His intelligence services are picking up indications of Allied activity in Normandy. No one wakes him. The hours pass. Reports keep coming. Marx is in his headquarters. Candlelight and radio static, a man trying to read a map that keeps changing. By 6 a.m., the cloud layer is breaking apart over the channel. Kampfgruppe Meyer is still on the road, heading inland, heading south. Then a new report arrives. There had been no airborne drops south of Carentan after all. It was a mistake. A rumor passed through a jumpy patrol and typed onto a message form. No German aircraft are in the sky to confirm or deny. Reconnaissance could have clarified this in 10 minutes. No reconnaissance flies. Marx's only reserve, gone. Chasing phantoms, moving away from the coast. The sun rises, the cloud layer breaks, the horizon disappears. There are ships where the horizon used to be. Destroyers, transports, landing craft, battleships, cruisers, from one edge of the sea to the other. The largest invasion fleet ever assembled. The great guns of the battleships Nevada, Texas, and Arkansas, and the British battleships Warspite and Ramillies have been firing since 5:30 a.m. The sound reaches St. Lo before dawn, a deep rolling percussion that the staff initially mistake for thunder from the departing storm. They are not wrong about the thunder. It is now the morning of June 6th. The fleet is there. Men are coming ashore. From Omaha to Utah in the west, from Gold to Juneau to Sword in the east, 5 landing zones are being established at a cost that will only be counted later. Across Marx's entire front, the 709th Division in the Cotentin, the 352nd Division at the bluffs above Omaha, the 716th Division on the long stretch east. Every report is worse than the last. Von Rundstedt acts. He sees the scale. 69 years old, sardonic, steady, the old gentleman reaches for the one tool that can still stop this. He requests the immediate release of the Panzer reserves, the 12th SS Panzer Division, Hitlerjugend, and Panzer Lehr, both held near Paris, both capable of reaching Normandy. He does not wait for the answer. He orders them to start moving. OKW countermands him. What if Normandy is the feint? Patton is in Kent. The 15th Army must not be stripped from Calais. The Panzers will wait. The Panzers wait. At Army Group B's headquarters at La Roche-Guyon, Colonel Hans Speidel sits with a phone in each hand. A doctorate on his shelf, wire-rimmed glasses, the manner of an academic dropped into the worst morning of the Western War. He is simultaneously processing reports from across the entire front, relaying requests for authorization up a chain that terminates in a sleeping man in Bavaria and trying to reach Rommel by telephone at his home in Germany. He is the entire nervous system of the battle now unfolding across the breadth of the sector, and he is one man in a building with unreliable electricity. Marx wants the 21st Panzer Division. It is deployed 20 miles southeast of Caen, has been fighting British paratroopers through the night, and it is the closest armored force to the beaches. But the 21st Panzer is under Army Group B, which means Rommel must authorize its release. Rommel is not there. Every request travels from St. Lo to La Roche-Guyon. from Speidel to a telephone call to Herrlingen, from Rommel's home to an authorization that takes 5.5 hours to travel back down the chain. At 10 a.m., Albert Speer arrives at the Berghof in Bavaria to find Hitler still asleep. By the time Hitler is wakened and briefed, it is nearly noon. His reaction is not alarm, it is elation. He has expected this, he has known it. Months of Fortitude's work, 62 of Garbeau's fabricated reports, absorbed into OKW summaries, repeated at briefing after briefing, confirming the pattern his mind already held, has done its work so completely that when reality finally arrives, Hitler cannot distinguish it from the trap he was prepared to see. Normandy is the feint. Patton is coming. This confirms his prediction. He telephones OKW in a state of excitement. At a lunchtime conference, Hitler agrees to release the Panzer reserves. It is noon. The window, the darkness of the early morning hours, when armored columns could have moved without air threat, when the beachhead was fragile and disorganized and contested, is closed. The Allied fighter-bombers own the French roads in daylight. The Panzers, when they finally move into a gauntlet. Panzerlehr's commander, General Fritz Bayerlein, will later report that his division loses dozens of vehicles on the march before firing a single shot at the beachhead. The roads become death traps before they become battlefields. The system worked exactly as designed. A request traveled up. The man at the top was asleep. When he woke, his judgment had been colonized by months of disinformation so thorough that reality itself could not displace it. By the time he said yes, the answer no longer mattered. It is mid-afternoon, June 6th, 1944. At noon, Marx finally receives command of the 21st Panzer Division, 5.5 hours after the first request. He issues his orders immediately. Cross the Orne. Wheel north through Caen, drive to the coast. The tanks begin to roll. In the middle of that afternoon, on a road in Normandy, Marx walks to Colonel Hermann von Oppeln-Bronikowski, who commands the armored regiment at the spearhead of the 21st Panzer's attack. The tanks are moving behind him north toward the coast. Marx looks at him. "If you don't succeed in throwing the British into the sea," he says, "we shall have lost the war." He has one leg. He is 53 years old. He called this landing 6 months ago in a war game and was given nothing extra for it. He sent his only reserve chasing phantoms before dawn. He waited 5.5 hours for a single Panzer division while the beachhead consolidated behind naval gunfire and Allied air cover. He knows what is at stake. He knows how small his chances are. There is nothing left to do but watch. The 21st Panzer drives north. It is met by British armor and the guns of the fleet offshore. The attack is stopped. The 21st Panzer's thrust is the only German armored move of the day, to reach the beaches. No other Panzer formation fires a shot at the beachhead on June 6th. By nightfall, the moment had passed. 3 days later, June 9th, Juan Pujol Garcia sends a message to his German handlers. Garbeau, the Abwehr's most trusted agent in Britain, tells them that Normandy is the diversion. The real blow is still coming. Patton is still waiting. Calais is still the target. The Germans believe him. Hitler never wavers from this conviction. The 15th Army, 19 divisions, the strongest force on the French coast, the force that could have changed the equation, sits frozen at Pas-de-Calais for weeks, waiting for an invasion that will never come, while across 50 miles of Normandy, the outcome of the war is decided with piecemeal German reserves fed into the fight one formation at a time and destroyed. By late July, the breakout begins. The German campaign in France collapses. The fates of the principal figures are brief and severe. Rommel was strafed by an RAF fighter on July 17th. His staff car forced off the road, his skull fractured. While hospitalized, his name surfaced in the investigation of the July 20th bomb plot against Hitler. He was given a choice: a public trial or a private death with his family protected. He chose the latter. He died on October 14th, 1944. He was 52 years old. He received a state funeral. The lie about his death was maintained. Von Rundstedt was dismissed by Hitler on July 3rd, the day after he reportedly told Field Marshal Keitel, when asked what should be done, "Make peace, you idiots." He was recalled twice more. He survived the war. Marx died on June 12, 1944, 6 days after D-Day. He was traveling to Carentan to oversee a counterattack, moving along the same roads down which he had sent Kampfgruppe Meyer in the dark before dawn. A fighter-bomber spotted his car. He was hit. He died the same day. He was 53 years old, exactly 1 week older than he had been when the paratroopers interrupted his birthday dinner. He was awarded the Oak Leaves to his Knight's Cross posthumously. He never knew he had received them. Juan Pujol Garcia was decorated by both sides. The Germans gave him the Iron Cross, awarded for outstanding service to the Reich, for intelligence of inestimable value, for the network of agents whose reports had reached the highest levels of German command. He received it from the handlers he had been systematically deceiving for 18 months. The British gave him the Member of the British Empire. He is the only man in the Second World War to be decorated by both the nation he served and the nation he helped destroy. This, then, is what German command said when those ships appeared off Normandy. They said it was impossible. They said it was a feint. They said the real blow was still coming, that Patton was waiting, that their Führer had been right all along. They said all of this while the beachhead consolidated and the window closed and the last tanks rolled north too small and too late. The one man who had nothing left to say had said it already. 6 months earlier, with his finger on a map. He said, "Normandy, in bad weather." No one gave him what he needed to hold it.